And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Kocher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMedia.tv.
Hello everyone and welcome to this, the last edition of PreneurCast podcast for 2012. This is Dom Goucher with Pete Williams joining you this week.
Happy almost New Year, buddy. How are you?
That's very good of you, sir. I'm very well, very well. And I think it's finally time for our traditional wrap-up of the year with the 2012 awards. Again, I think we're all in between family events, so we'll just get right into it with this show. So let's go through. I mean, we do this, and we pretty much do the same thing each year. So I'm going to go through the categories that we do, and if there's something that stands out for you, then we'll put that. We'll put that down. But if there's any more categories that you've thought of, anything that stood out for you this year, do let me know. Otherwise, we'll stick to the tried and true method that we've followed for a couple of years now. And we usually start out with a book.
Yep.
What book really stood out for you this year?
To me, definitely the book of the year. Being a marketer and being a bit of a media kind of guy as well, was Ryan Holiday's "Trust Me, I'm Lying." It's a fantastic book. We've had Ryan on the show this year. I've built up, a reasonable email friendship with him, I guess you'd call it. And he's a very, very smart, switched-on guy. Being in his early 20s as marketing manager for American Apparel clothing brand, to the mastermind behind some hugely successful book launches for Robert Greene, Tim Ferris, Tucker Max, and a whole bunch of other people. He's a very, very smart media manipulator, and using the media to actually get exposure and awareness and interest in his products and services and obviously his clients as well. And I think for anybody who's marketing this day and age online, who's using blogs and newspapers and online media platforms to do all that sort of stuff, it's really important to know how the game works. And Ryan just lays it out brilliantly in his book, Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Got to agree with you on that one. Got to agree with you. It was a real eye-opener for me. It's one of those, some of it is kind of, oh wow, yeah, that really makes sense. And some of it is like, oh wow, really? That's quite scary how that works.
Yeah.
It's a great read, isn't it? It's entertaining as well as being informative to people who do what we do.
And, for those who've played along at home for a while and listened to the show, know that I much prefer to consume books in audio format as opposed to actually reading, whereas with Ryan's book, I got a pre-release copy, and I'm starting to get more and more pre-release copies of books these days, which is great, but it means I have to actually read them rather than wait for the audio. With Ryan's, I couldn't put it down once I started. It was a fantastic read, very, very compelling, very engaging, and I really look forward to his new book that he's working on at the moment.
Well, then a true compliment from you if you'll actually sit down and read it rather than listen to it. Cool.
What about you, mate? Is there a particular book that stood out for you at all? Or?
I get my reading list mostly from you. I have to confess. It's one of those little hacks that I do. I let you do my research for me. And I completely agree with you that Trust Me, I'm Lying was pretty much, of the new books this year that we read, there's a lot of contenders for that, though. There are a lot of contenders. I mean, Tim Ferriss's latest book.
Yep, absolutely. 4 Hour Chef.
For anybody who hasn't read that, by the way, it's not about cooking, believe it or not. It is about cooking, but it's about mastering skills, and that's something that learning and study and kind of improving your brain power and things like that is just something that I'm very interested in. It's my kind of personal hobby. So that was a very interesting book for me, that really stood out from the rest, I guess. But we do read an awful lot. Sometimes it is hard to pick a standout. But yeah, I'm going to go with you with Trust Me, I'm Lying on that.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
Cool. So our next category is software or app, as in iPhone, iPad, smartphone app. there anything that stood out for you this year?
Yeah, look, from a general software perspective, nothing really new has hit my desk that I am enamored with and is part of my daily workflow. Like, there's nothing really that stood out. Like, I seem to have, as we spoke about last week, different tools and stuff. I'm still on that tried and true method using those original tools. But I guess, if we're going to throw apps into it, I guess, a couple of the apps I have enjoyed this year have been, pregnancy apps in terms of, baby apps and stuff like that, because obviously we're due to give birth to a child in the new year. So things like, where is the app? Baby Bump and Baby Tracker and My Pregnancy and all these sort of apps that Fleur's been downloading and throwing on my phone so we can watch the progression of our unborn child have been really interesting. So I guess from that perspective, those apps have been something that I have looked at and played with that I hadn't historically. But from a business perspective, in the context of the PreneurCast show, there hasn't been anything that's really jumped out that I am using that I wasn't using 12 months earlier, which is interesting because there's been huge progress with new apps and stuff like that, but I've never found something that really fits with my workflow yet, which is surprising, but so be it.
Well, no, but if it works, don't mess with it. I'm a great believer in that, as you know. I don't. We both, neither of us, upgrade for the sake of upgrading. Neither of us change for the sake of change, which I quite like, and I'm quite pleased with, because some change is good, but sometimes change can get in the way of things and give you something else to concentrate on. So, what of the old, tried and trusted tools would you kind of put in as your vote?
Look, I think, we spoke about it last week. I think Evernote is sort of obviously, for me, that digital filing cabinet, which allows me to have everything stored digitally, which I use so often. You use it in a slightly different way that we spoke about on last week's show. But, fundamentally, to me, that's a big one. Notational Velocity is something we didn't speak about last week, but it's an app that I use daily to sort of, it's my digital notebook. So I keep Evernote for my filing cabinets of clippings and stuff like that, but my own writing and note-taking is all in NVAlt, which is a version of Notational Velocity. And that's something that I do use quite regularly. But I guess, from a service perspective, in terms of software, a software package that did come out this year was MagCast, which did blow my socks off and impress me. So I guess, for that perspective, I think we should put props out to Ed and John and the team there for producing that software package, because it is an amazing solution for people who want to print and produce their own digital magazines.
Actually, you know what? You left fielded me with that completely. There I was about to just completely join in and say, yeah, Evernote. Because after, in last week's show where we talked about the kind of top 10 tools that we use every day, to me, this year, Evernote has been a new app. It has been a new software, because I've kind of used it. It was installed on my machine. Apparently, according to the date log, it was installed in 2008. But I can't say that I'd ever really used it in anger until maybe even the last 2 or 3 months. But I've really, it's a completely different thing to me now, and I use it in a completely different way, as we talked about last week. I won't go over it, but it would definitely be my software of the year. But as you left fielded me with the MagCast platform, in terms of apps, and it's a little bit of a software and app and service that Ed Dale's put together with John Bass with the MagCast platform, but it is amazing as a publishing platform. And it really is a whole platform, isn't it? Because it allows you to create an app to go into the Apple Newsstand platform to publish digital magazines onto the iPad, and it's so easy to use. It's amazing. It really is amazing how easy it is to go from nothing to a fully published and promoted magazine on the Apple Store. So yeah, all due to Ed and John for getting that off the ground and doing so well with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So I have a funny feeling I know what the answer is going to be, given your previous answer about nothing really standing out on the software front. But has anything really stood out this year on the hardware front?
Yeah, look, we were talking about this recently as well, and again, from a business perspective, probably to really stretch it, the 2 terabyte portable USB hard drive is probably about as bad as sexy as it gets for me for new hardware this year. Looking around my office, The Doxy scanner was my winner last year. I still use that. MacBook Pro, my Yeti mic. The hardware I use in my business hasn't really changed at all this year, which is surprising when I thought about it. You kind of think that something new will come along every year, but nothing from that perspective. And then, I guess the only other bit of hardware that has changed my life this year is my blender. We've got a pretty high-end blender sitting downstairs in the kitchen because I'm doing the whole green smoothie, kale smoothie morning ritual these days, and the blender is probably the only bit of hardware that's new to my household or office this year that is getting it working every single day. And I couldn't do what I do without my my morning green smoothies, and the blender is to thank for that.
So go on. I mean, it's perfectly valid. It's hardware. It makes a difference in your life. What is it? Is it a particularly special, well-known brand of blender?
No, look, I didn't go for the Vitamix or whatever the heck those ridiculous $1,200 blenders are. I've got a few $100 one, like not a cheap one, but a reasonable department store bought one. I think it's a Breville. I don't know the model, but it's the high-end Breville blender, and it has been brilliant. Like it's I don't see the benefit for the type of stuff I use it for to go and spend an extra $800. I don't think it's going to be able to chop up my kale leaves any thinner than my current blender does.
So you weren't thinking of moonlighting and adding your own version of the Will It Blend show then?
No, nothing like that. The Blendex again, I think they're again like $1,100 or something like that. They're great blenders, but I'm blending like apples, oranges, bananas, kale, spinach, that kind of stuff. It's not like I'm trying to blend an iPhone and drink that every morning or anything like that. So, it doesn't need to be ridiculously overly powerful.
So those rumors are very overrated then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, a lot of people have been talking about things like that though this year. A lot of the tech crowd have been talking about things like the AeroPress coffee maker.
Oh, I don't do caffeine, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I know you don't. That's why I knew you weren't going to say that. But it's a thing. It's a big thing. The lifestyle things are coming in, as you say. I mean, there's been nothing for either of us that's been truly kind of revolutionary. I mean, I remember when you got the Doxy scanner, and that was like your entire world revolved around a Doxy scanner for a while.
Scanning everything I could.
Yeah. There is something, and we talked about it last week. I really shoehorned it into last week's show because it has impressed me this year, which has been the MacBook Air that because I haven't really had laptops for years because I've never really traveled very much.
I'm starting to believe that you've taken over Ed Dale's spot as the biggest Mac fanboy in the internet marketing space, because I think Ed's discussion and preaching of all things Apple has slowly subsided a little bit, but you've definitely taken up that mantle and pushed it hard.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that. Ed has really dialed back on his Mac fanboy stuff. I mean, I even hear him talking about a Google Nexus the other week.
Yeah.
In a positive manner as well, so just to be clear. Yeah, we live on Mac gear, and we love it because it's a tool that does the job well. We're not just because it's silver and has a big shiny symbol on the back of it. It's a tool to me. But and I'm coming at it from that point of view, just like your blender does it blends things. The MacBook Air to me, the reason why it impressed me was because when they first came out, they were considered to be underpowered and overpriced. And now, if you from a portable workstation point of view, for the average to high-end user, they're very capable machines. I was totally surprised. I was really worried because it was bought predominantly to support the Profit Hacks launch, where we spent so much time in Florida, and I needed a machine that I could travel really easily with. So it needed to be lightweight and compact, but it needed to be able to do a lot of the editing work that we do to produce all the content, and just support that while away from the desk, because I have a big old desktop machine when I'm in the office. And yeah, there was nothing that it couldn't do, absolutely nothing. And to just as a side note, and I have mentioned this before, I think, but the one thing about the MacBook Air people are worried about is its capability to process video and handle high-end video stuff. Editing it wise, certainly for the stuff that we did, stuff that came off my Panasonic GH2 camera, video camera, and the screencast stuff that we record with ScreenFlow, no problem at all. Where it did have a little bit of a thinking time was with the export before you could upload it to YouTube or to the delivery platform or wherever. And to help that out, the other thing that I was really impressed with this year was my Elgato Turbo 264 HD, which you can't get more technical than that, really, can you? Please don't switch off, folks. Well, I'm going to finish soon. But it's a little thing that you plug into the USB port on your Mac, and it takes over the video processing when you're doing an export, and it just zooms along, just poof, and the thing's out. So your Mac, people worried about the MacBook Air not being able to do that kind of job. For less than $100, this little stick does it for you. It doesn't matter how fast or slow the computer itself is, the stick is the thing that does all the hard work. So definitely kind of new additions to me that have really impressed me this year have been the MacBook Air and the Elgato stick. So, but actual kind of new technology, no, I'm with you there. We haven't really done that much this year. So moving on to fun things, what podcasts have stood out for you this year, Pete?
Well, there's actually been kind of two podcasts that I've gotten into this year that aren't actually new podcasts. They've been around for a while, but I kind of, got off the bandwagon of them a little bit, or never really, in one case, got really onto the bandwagon. So, Freakonomics is a great podcast that kind of, supports and talks about the same sort of things that the book series did, about just weird economical, I guess, case studies on different things about how the world works, which is really interesting. So I find it interesting and engaging just to sort of think outside the box and keep sort of my finger on the pulse of creative, unique ideas and stuff like that. So Freakonomics is a fantastic one. They're short, 20-minute episodes and stuff like that. Another one, which I've actually only really gotten into this year, is Mixergy. Now, Mixergy and Andrew's podcast and video series has been around for a couple of years now, and is quite large and very well known and respected. But I never kind of got into it early and sort of then kind of ignored it for a while. But got recommended to listen to a couple of shows recently, and I have to give Andrew some props in that the episodes that I've been listening to and kind of getting back onto the bandwagon, as I said, he calls his guests out, which I find so refreshing. Because there's so many people who kind of will get a guest on and just, I guess, pander to them a little bit and just let them get away with their answers for whatever they may be. Whereas Andrew's like, hang on, let's really dig into this. That just sounds like crap or whatever. Like a great episode he did with Michael Ellsberg, who wrote Education of Millionaires, and he really grilled Michael about sort of caught him on some things that sounded like bullshit and was like, that can't be right, and how can you, as someone who isn't a millionaire, write about this, and was really asking some relatively hard-hitting questions, which I found very, very refreshing. And on the back of that, I'm actually listening to a lot more of his episodes, his interviews now, because it's coming across as there's a lot more integrity than just pandering in the interviews, which is great.
Cool. Is Mixergy a subscription service, or do they have an iTunes open podcast stream?
What he's done, which I think he's done very, very intelligently, is that initially when Mixergy started, it was just a series of interviews that you can go and get. He then put a paywall up and said that the back catalogue, you have to pay to get the back catalogue. So if you subscribe to the iTunes feed, you can get every single episode as it comes out and it's on your machine. But over time, the back catalogue disappear unless you have a membership, which I think is a very interesting business model that he's gone about. Now, how successfully that monetization's happened and stuff, I don't know. But on the surface, it looks like a very cool way to actually monetize a blog in some respect, in making people pay for the back catalogue. But if you subscribe, you can get the latest stuff. So I'm just a subscriber to the iTunes feed and just get the episodes as they come out.
Cool. Top tip. I like it. I didn't even know there was a Freakonomics podcast, but I love the book, so I'll definitely be checking that out. And yeah, I agree with you about the Mixergy stuff that I listen to. I listened to it on the site. I didn't actually, again, pick it up as a podcast.
Well, again, this is something that I think that you can watch the video, you can sit there and watch the video, but at the end of the day, like we talk about in the launch of Profit Hacks and in the product and all that sort of stuff, is realistically, where is the value in the actual content that is being produced? Is it in actually watching the guest's face and seeing what colour shirt he's wearing today? Or is it in the actual articulation of the ideas and the experience and the teachings and that sort of stuff? So from that perspective, an audio is just as good, if not more effective, than the video version.
Yeah. And it's definitely easier to consume while you're doing other stuff. I find podcasts, if it's not instructional, if it's informational, that they're a great way of just catching up on what's going on. So I'm definitely going to join in with the Freakonomics one because, as I say, I found the book really interesting. So that's podcasts. What about courses? Because there's always so many new courses, new products, information products out there to pick up and learn. Have you kind of done any studying this year of anything new, or?
Yeah, look, Ed Dale, if he's listening, is going to give me some crap again if I say Profit Hacks was the best course of this year. But realistically, though, the thing that I really loved this year is, I wouldn't necessarily call it a course as such, but more of a newsletter subscription. I've been a big follower and subscriber to Dan Kennedy's No BS newsletter for a while, and I think that's a must-have for any marketer. It's like $50 a month or something like that. It's nothing, but it's just full of gold every single month. And there's links on my blog to get it, and you can put links in the show notes and stuff to be able to subscribe to the No BS letter. But something I came across this year that I didn't actually know Dan did is a high-end newsletter called the Over My Shoulder. And basically what Dan does is every single month to these high-level subscribers, give out and show and basically case study copywriting work and marketing work he's doing for clients. So if he's actually in the middle of doing a sales letter for a client, he'll actually share drafts and excerpts of that sales letter to this newsletter, and then annotate and describe what he's writing, why he's writing it like the way it is, what the angle is, and really kind of allow you to actually see and learn his thought process when he's actually working on paid work for clients, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Kennedy is one of those names that if you're involved in, well, if you're in business for yourself, basically, in any way, then you really should know something about Dan's work, his copywriting, but his perception of the business space is just something that it's worth having the input from, definitely. And I love the idea of the over my shoulder, where, as you say, you're looking over his shoulder as he works through. So he's actually seen his thinking process as well, because it's something actually that Rich Sheffrin said while we were over in Florida. He talks about that uncommon common sense.
Yep.
Yeah, and Dan Kennedy's one of those people. When you read Dan Kennedy's stuff and he says, and look at it like this, you just sit there and go, well, oh yeah, of course. But, in all my days, I probably would never have actually had that original thought. But the moment that Dan Kennedy points it out, away you go. That's great. Yeah. So yeah, I love Dan's stuff too. As you say, it's certainly the No BS newsletter is a pretty much a must-have. But the Over My Shoulder has definitely got added value. For myself, something that you recommended to me actually, that I really resonated with this year. It's kind of on my own personal journey. It's not necessarily a business thing, although it is very much related to business. Was Brian Tracy, another very, very prolific producer of highly valuable content. With great perception and great perspective on the world, produced some time ago something called the Accelerated Learning Techniques course. And I've recently kind of gone through that again. And it's an audio-based course, which was great. Meant that I could kind of take this stuff in as I was puddling around doing my stuff. And I won't go into it because if you're not interested in that kind of thing, then it won't interest you in general. But his argument is that in all kinds of business, in all kinds of everything, being able to learn and take on new information quickly is a valuable business asset, which I totally agree with, which is why I'm fascinated by the subject. And it's quite an extensive course. He covers all different kinds of learning and some examples of different things you might want to learn. One of the best examples was learning a language, which has some great tips and tricks for, which of course is handy for me living in Spain. But I really enjoyed that. Very worth the time spent going through it, and also worth the time going through it again, just as a bit of a revision thing. Although I'm going to do it. I'm going to sneak it in, and Ed Dale can say what he likes. I'm very proud of what we produced this year with Profit Hacks.
Absolutely.
And I would hope that somewhere on somebody's list we appear.
No, I do agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So okay. Moving on. We've mentioned really services, as in online services and stuff. We mentioned MagCast earlier, because that's a hybrid of a service, a platform, an app, or this or that, the other. But are there any services that you've been using this year that have really stood out for you?
Yeah, look, I think for me, one of the biggest services that we've been implementing in a number of our different businesses and projects is a service called Xero, Xero.com. It's a New Zealand-based company, and it's kind of like, I guess, mint.com. It's like an online accounting business software solution. So I'm using that for the Preneur brand. We're using it now in the outdoor gear, business. We're not using it in the telco or anything like that, because in that business we've got SAP B1, which is like a very decent six-figure implementation. $200,000-$300,000 cost to actually get it implemented and set up. So we're not going away from that for the bigger companies, but for the smaller sort of businesses where it's just about invoicing, receipting, and some payroll, very, very I guess basic, quote unquote, functionality. Xero is fantastic. It's cloud-based. You can have multiple people logging in. We've got people in the Philippines entering based on their sort of license AP invoices from suppliers. Then we have the bank feeds automatically happening, which is super cool feature. You can actually link up your bank account with the service, so any transactions of cash actually pulls it into your software automatically. So then all you have to do is just go through it once a week and match up the invoices you put in there, AP or AR, and match it with the cash flow and tick, yep, that matches, and it's just such an easy and efficient way to manage the books of a business, and it does all your accounting, reporting, and stuff like that. It's very, very cost effective, and it's something that we're using quite a bit in a number of our projects this year, which has been phenomenal.
Cool. I have a slightly technical question. Can it do the same thing with PayPal?
I don't know if it automates. You can obviously have PayPal linked up. I don't know if it automates the transactions of PayPal or not, like it does with bank accounts. But obviously you can export and import CSVs and stuff like that if you have to. So you still can do the functionality you need. Just I'm not sure if it actually automatically pulls the feeds in for PayPal.
Cool.
That's something top of my head. I have to ask the accounts team about that, because that's sort of, once I kind of got the basics my head around it, then I just handballed it to the team to get them to do the rest of it. But the one good thing it does have is a photo on the homepage of its website that looks like a very young Eugene Ware, who is the founder of the Market Samurai and Noble Samurai, who's a good friend of ours. That's completely pointless, but it does have a very funny photo of a person that looks like a young Eugene Ware.
And I'm looking, and you're not wrong.
It's awesome. It's a very cool picture.
That's awesome. Oh dear. Okay, excellent. For me, I mean, I can't speak to the Xero solution, but something again that you did recommend to me a while ago that I've kind of ramping my use up of is IFTTT. If this, then that.
Yep.
Yeah. It's proved itself most useful for some very random little things. Last week we talked about some of the tools that you use, and you use a thing on your machine to automate things called Hazel. And to me, IFTTT is kind of like Hazel out in the real world, out on the internet, in that you can set up these rules that if this, then that. More specifically, on websites or on social media services or whatever. And there's all kinds of different things that you can do. One of the biggest disappointments actually was that some point through the year, Twitter changed their terms of service, and you now can't use IFTTT to read Twitter. You can get it to write to Twitter, but you can't read from Twitter. So I was using it to keep a track on specific things happening on Twitter.
Which I find interesting, because so have Twitter stopped their RSS feeds?
It's not that. There's like it was one of those things that there's one line somewhere buried in a paragraph, somewhere in the 0.4.7.27.5 III of the Twitter terms of service that IFTTT was contravening. And they just said, look, let's play safe and let's not do it.
Fair enough.
I'm sure there's a way around it, but I haven't got it. But I use it for all manner of other things, like watching specific RSS feeds and getting an email if something happens. You can get it to post things to things. You can get it to, some people use it so that if they send something to their blog, it will also do something else. It'll go somewhere else, take that content from there. You do it by you choose an input and you choose an output and you choose a rule, and that's it. And it's a big, huge visual thing. You just click a couple of buttons online and things start happening. But in terms of automating, keeping an eye on things, doing repetitive tasks, it's a really cool service and definitely well worth a look. It's totally free.
Cool.
So
I like it.
I use IFTTT this year.
Nice.
So another thing we talk about, another award that we give out is a kind of a blog or a website that's really stood out for you this year.
Yeah, look, again, I'm trying to find new stuff, and I think the blogs and stuff I spoke about last year still definitely apply. But there's probably been three standouts, two new ones and one that's been around for a while again that I kind of just cottoned onto, for want of a better term. One of them is tuckermax.me. Now, Tucker's the controversial author of Hope I Serve Beer in Hell and a whole bunch of other very controversial fratire type books, a good friend and client of Ryan Holiday's. But Tucker's a very, very smart man, much, much more intelligent than a lot of people give him credit for. And his blog that he's created and started this year at tuckermax.me is basically just his analysis of books and quotes and, higher kind of things, for want of a better term. And I found that really engaging. He doesn't post very regularly, but when he posts, I really do enjoy reading his writing on that. It's definitely a different writing to what he's known for anyway, which is really cool. A thing that's been launched only recently, Thrive Forward, is something that's very, very cool. That is just a service. Well, it's not even a service. It's just like an online, I guess, portal that's been developed to promote a product in the Vega, depending how you want to pronounce it, sports range of supplements. But it's basically this online portal where you can go in and get a whole bunch of really high quality videos around health, well-being, and a whole foods plant-based diet, which I think is very, very cool. But I guess the blog that's really captured my attention this year, because I've actually spent focused some attention onto it, is Ramit Shetty's, I hope I pronounced that right, I always get it wrong, I Will Teach You to Be Rich.com. Now, the book is a good book, and if you're a US-based person, it's fantastic. Anywhere else in the world, definitely still applicable. But his blog is brilliant. He does very long article posts and stuff like that, but they're around a whole range of things, not just necessarily building wealth or getting a job, or he covers things like, just personal effectiveness and interaction and all that sort of stuff, and just becoming a better human being all around. But his writing is brilliant. Such an engaging writer, such a very good copywriter, which you don't really get when you read it. Like, I think most people, when they think of copywriting, if you've sort of been in that internet marketing world that I know a lot of listeners are involved in, they sort of think copywriting is very hard, heavy, sleazy kind of, deadline, scarcity driven sort of stuff. But, anything that actually persuades is copywriting. And I think, if you actually take the time to read Ramit's writing, it is very, very persuasive, very, very engaging, and also obviously has some great content to back that up too, which has been really cool. So that's a very much a blog that I'd suggest people keep an eye out on for their own benefit, as an individual, as someone who wants to build wealth or just become a better person, but also someone who wants to be a better marketer. There's worse people you can look at and swipe and deploy from. Cool,
I like that. I have quite an esoteric one, most of the things I read, I've been reading them for years, and we talked a lot about them in last year's show, and I'm still reading them. Things like Marco Arment, Marco.org, that I read because he's expanded his writing to cover a lot of more everyday topics, as well as the business of writing software, being the guy that did Instapaper. But one that I actually sit and wait for just to see what's going to happen next is a blog by a guy called Fraser Spears.
Okay.
At spears.org. Probably won't interest you, but it stands out to me because Fraser Spears is a guy. He's an IT coordinator for a school, I think it's a middle school, not a secondary school.
Okay.
In Scotland. It's like the most random thing ever, right?
Yep.
He is just one random guy, or was just one random guy. But the school made this decision to implement iPads in classrooms. And they decided that instead of investing more and more in one computer per classroom or whatever, massive investment that a lot of schools go through trying to get a group of computers or build a computer center and all this stuff, they said, we are going to go for one iPad per child.
Okay.
And he's gone from nothing. So it's a study in a lot of things. First of all, it's all the decisions that they have to make. Then it's all the problems that they've had doing it because the infrastructure wasn't there to support having that many devices. So there's a lot of technology stuff which I'm interested in. But it's also about the learning. It's about what it's doing to the learning environment and what the perception of it is from the children, the parents. So it's kind of like this human thing. But he doesn't write very often. But when he does, it's very well considered real world perception on what all the hoo-ha that's kicking off. So, when people say, oh, the iPad's done its course, or a mini iPad is just a big this, or all the technology pundits that just make like offhand comments. But he'll come in with something that really does look at it from a real world kind of grassroots point of view. And I just enjoy the guy's writing, and he's now doing very well for himself as a kind of an independent consultant. He's asked to speak at a lot of events. But I just find it interesting. So it's a little bit off the wall, can't say it's for everybody. But certainly if you're involved in anything like, or you're just interested in the technology side of things, it's definitely worth a look just to see a real world perspective on this stuff instead of just a kind of, I don't know, Engadget, Tech Radar, Gizmodo type articles going, woo, new iPad, woo, So, all right. So now, the last couple of years, you've come out with like a random off-the-wall thing that's leapt out at you for the year. The last couple of years, it's actually a TV documentary. Is there anything like that this year, or a new kind of topic you want to introduce?
Yeah, look, there hasn't been any particular documentary that kind of stood out for me this year. Like, watched a lot as I often do, but nothing again sort of life-shattering or anything like that there has been the last couple of years. But I guess something that I did go to this year, which was a bit of a highlight, was the EIA event in Silicon Valley. So the EIA is the Experts Industry Association. So it's for authors, speakers, consultants, coaches, that kind of person who I guess is an quote unquote expert in some level. And I was honoured enough to be asked to speak at the event, which was such an honour and a lot of fun. But the people in the room and the stuff that was shared was very, very cool. So that was probably, the standout event for me this year. I didn't go again to a lot of events. I kind of, as we kind of, subtly have shown throughout today's, awards episode, is that this year was all about production and getting down and doing nitty gritty rather than consumption for me particular, and yourself as well. So didn't get out to a lot of events I had previously, kind of knuckled down and just did a whole bunch of work and projects and stuff like that. But that was definitely one of the better events I've been to in quite a while. A lot of fun, great people, and got to learn a lot and that sort of stuff. So that was definitely something that I'd suggest people, if they're in that sort of space on some level, that you might want to sort of consider going to next year.
Cool. That's a good tip. And
the best
not
thing
as
about
far
it was,
off. Go on.
well, sorry, the best thing about it was, I think probably part of the reason that it was such a good event, it was a no-pitch event. It wasn't about trying to, sell at the back of the room. Not a single speaker was allowed to or able to or wanted to sell from the back of the room. It was all about just giving good, high-quality content out, and I think that's what made it such a great event as well.
Cool. Now that's definitely a good point, because I think a lot of people have got a bit shy of these events in recent years because of the amount of pitching that has happened. But an event that is just people just transfer of knowledge, I think is a great thing. I remember you going to it, and I remember you coming back and saying what a great time you had. So awesome. Well, it's a good range, as you say. I mean, just to recap as we get close to time on this week, it's been an unusual year in one way for us, but I think it's been a good year that we've got down to business, that we've been busy doing things, we've been busy producing. The major event for us was Profit Hacks that we produced this year and launched. And so we've been almost focusing internally, working on the business, growing, changing what we do, moving the direction. And then the last show, I've mentioned how much I've changed, my business structure and my business model and how I'm involved with my business. I think your involvement with the business has stayed the same because it's how you do business. You stand up there and you look down and you do the business. You don't do the mechanics. You focus on the core things that are going to add value. But yeah, it's not been a year. We talked about this slightly offline. It's not been a year for huge things this year. The last few years we've had lots to talk about. Big courses being released and new hardware that's making a huge difference in the industry and all that kind of thing. But I think a lot of people have gone through what we've gone through this year, and they've just been getting down to it and kind of just producing content, which is good. I think it's important. So that kind of wraps up 2012 for us. 2013 we have big plans, which we'll be announcing soon. I think the biggest thing we need to talk about, Pete, is the decision that we've made, and this is kind of a formal announcement, everyone. Next year we are moving to bi-weekly episodes, so one every 2 weeks. And that is a reflection, first and foremost, because Mr. Williams will soon become Dad.
Yep.
His official title will be changed in the show notes. You'll be having a baby early in 2013. Yep. And you have no idea how much that's going to change your life, but you have some idea, so we're anticipating it.
Yeah, well, it's been almost 2 years now. We've been doing the show on a weekly basis, and I don't think we've missed a week. There's been sometimes we have to backdate or back publish an episode here or there because we've missed a date or whatever it's been. But there's been pretty much an episode per week for 2 years now, completely free. So we thought that going bi-weekly will give us a chance to get other projects and other things happening. I'm going to be doing a lot more blogging over the next 12 months as well. So again, amazing content that we've been giving away in the podcast, but it'll be blog based and stuff that's much better as a written article or a report than it is a podcast episode. So make sure you do sort of, follow along at PreneurMarketing.com for all that sort of stuff. But still, interviews as we do regularly on the show or on the blog. But in terms of hearing Doms and I, discussions and stuff, it's going to be the 2 episodes a month type thing in 2013. So to give everyone as well time to consume the content, because I think a lot of feedback we've had as well is that the content's so awesome, but people just struggle to keep up every single week. So we're going to obviously play to that as well a little bit.
Yeah, and we are slightly shifting our focus next year, as you said, Pete. You're going to be doing a lot more blogging. We're also got a lot of projects and products in the pipeline that we've got ideas for that we want to apply ourselves to, and I think the big thing, and we'll slightly let the cat half out of the bag on this one. is our community. We want to start working more directly with our community, the Preneur community. And so yeah, we're allocating our time focusing on things, but we want to continue the PreneurCast because it's great. We get great feedback, loads of listeners. We love hearing from everybody. And we want to continue to just add this value for free, as we have done now for almost 2 years. So moving into 2013, we'll carry on, and we'll look forward to hearing from you on iTunes comments, always greatly received. You can catch up with us on preneurmedia.tv. All the shows are backdated on there for free. All the transcripts are on there. All the show notes are available on there. And you can also leave us a comment on any episode, or a little audio comment with the cool tool that we have on there. Keep an eye on preneurmarketing.com, as Pete said. Things are going to move forward on there as well. So see you all in 2013.
Ciao.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gaucher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at preneurmedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.